Good afternoon, dear students. Previous class, we start to learn about how the company fights back against the rebellions. So we all of you knows that, dear students, actually the East India Company brought reinforcements from even England also, and even East India Company passed many new laws so that the rebels could be convicted with ease, and also then moved into the storm centers of the revolt. Especially, Delhi was recaptured from the rebel forces in September 1857. The last Mughal emperor was Mughal, Mughal king, the last Mughal king, Bahadur Shah Jafar. He was tried in court and sentenced to life imprisonment also. He and his wife Begum Jinnat Mahal. So both were sent to prison in Rangoon in October 1858. Unfortunately, Bahadur Shah Jafar was the last king of the Mughal dynasty, was died in the Rangoon jail in November 1862. And afterwards, the British East India Company recaptured of Delhi. So even after the recapture, that didn't mean that the rebellion died down after that. So the people, they were continued to resist and battled the British. The British had to fight for 2 years to suppress the massive forces of popular rebellion. Then we came to know that how the Indians, so they were completely expressed their awareness against the British administration. So Lucknow was taken in March 1858. The Rani Lakshmi Bai, Jhansi Rani Lakshmi Bai, she was defeated and killed in June 1858. And the same, a similar fate about awaited Rani Avanti Bai also, who after initial victory in Keri chose to embrace the death when surrounded by the British on all sides. And afterwards, Tantya Topi was escaped to the jungles, especially in the central India, and continued to fight a guerrilla war with the support of many tribal and peasant leaders. But again, unfortunately, Tantya Topi was also captured, tried, and killed in April 1859. See, just as victories against the British had earlier encouraged rebellion, the defeat of rebel forces encouraged desertions. The British also tried their best to win back the loyalty of the people. They announced rewards for the loyal landholders would be allowed to continue the, especially to enjoy their traditional rights over their lands. And those who had rebelled were told that if they submitted to the British and if they had not killed any white people, they would remain safe and their rights and claims to land would not be denied. So, like that, they were using so many tricks also, policies also. Never see, there were so many people, even the hundreds, sepoys, rebels, nawabs, and even the rajas. So they were tried and hanged. So, like this way, dear students, the British East India Company followed different policies, including force, to repress this movement. Then let us see that afterwards what happened. If the British East India Company whether it brought any changes in the country, of course they were introduced, they brought reinforced men from England also, and then they were passed new law and all. Understood? Afterwards, what happened? Let us see that. See, the British had regained control of the country by the end of the 1859. Within 2 years, actually, they were regained the control of our country. But they could not carry on ruling the land with the same policies anymore. Of course, dear students, so the East India Company understood that they could not carry the same rule, and even so they were thought to bring some of the policies, some of the changes in their administration. So let us discuss about what were the changes or what were the things brought by the East India Company after this 1857 rebellion. So let us discuss about what and all they were brought, the important changes and which were introduced by the British administration in our subcontinent. So dear students, the British Parliament passed a new act in 1858. So the first thing that is important one, the British Parliament passed a new act in 1858. What was the significance of this act? See, it is what a very important which was passed by the British Parliament. So dear students, according to this act, the complete transferred the powers of the East India Company to the British Crown. Understood now? No, what happened? The British Parliament passed an act in 1858 and transferred the entire powers of the East India Company to the British Crown in order to ensure a more responsible management of Indian affairs. So, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ತನಕ ಭಾರತದಲ್ಲಿ ಆಡಳಿತದ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಈಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಕಂಪನಿ ಮೇಲೆ ಇರುತ್ತೆ. ಆದರೆ ಈ ಒಂದು ಕಾಯ್ದೆಯನ್ನ ಪಾಸ್ ಮಾಡುವ ಮುಖಾಂತರ ಸಂಪೂರ್ಣ ಭಾರತದ ಆಡಳಿತದ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಅದು ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಕ್ರೌನ್ಗೆ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ. ಅಂಡರ್ಸ್ಟುಡ್? ಸೊ ರಾಜನ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ನ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ. See, a member of the British cabinet appointed as Secretary of State for India. So a member of the British Parliament appointed as Secretary of State for India. Secretary of State for India. Understood? Getting these students. So now the responsibility of the India that goes to the British Crown, and also a member of the British cabinet was appointed as Secretary of State for India. Understood? And made responsible for all matters related to the governance of India. The governance of India that goes to the Secretary of State for India was actually the member of British cabinet. See, the Governor General of India, so that was given the title of Viceroy. So still actually was the head of the administration called as Governor General. Governor General. So now the Governor General post was actually the head of the entire administration. So that given the title of Viceroy. Given the title of Viceroy instead of Governor General. See, there is a personal representative of the crown. So the Viceroy is a personal representative of the crown. Through these measures, the British government accepted direct responsibility for ruling India. Now what happened? The responsibility, especially ruling India, so that was actually completely controlled by the East India Company. Now that became the British government responsibility. That is about ruling India completely. That goes under the British Parliament after this. And the second important thing, all ruling chiefs of the country were assured that their territory would never be annexed in future. So they were assured, whoever maybe already existed, the ruling chiefs in overall country. So they were all assured that their territory would never be annexed in future. See, they were allowed to pass on their kingdoms to their heirs, including adopted sons also. However, dear students, they were made to acknowledge the British Queen as their sovereign paramount. Now what happened? So they were all actually made to acknowledge the British Queen as their sovereign paramount. Thus, the Indian rulers were to hold their kingdoms as the subordinates of the British crown. Of course, the Indian rulers, they can hold their kingdoms. How? As subordinates of the British crown. Understood, dear students? ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಸೊ ಆ ಒಂದು ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಚಕ್ರಾಧಿಪತ್ಯದ ಸಾರ್ವಭೌಮತ್ವವನ್ನು ಒಪ್ಪಿಕೊಂಡು ಭಾರತೀಯ ರಾಜರುಗಳು ಸೊ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಚಕ್ರಾಧಿಪತ್ಯದ ಸಾರ್ವಭೌಮತ್ವವನ್ನು ಒಪ್ಪಿಕೊಂಡು ಅವರ ಆಳ್ವಿಕೆಯನ್ನು ನಡೆಸಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಅವರಿಗೆ ಅವಕಾಶವನ್ನ ಮಾಡಿಕೊಡಲಾಗುತ್ತದೆ. And the next point was, it was decided that the proportion of Indian soldiers in the army would be reduced and the number of European soldiers would be increased. Because they understood that. Because here, the first actually, the Mangala Pandey only started was a soldier in British army. Indian soldier. So that's what. So the British Parliament decided to reduce the proportion of Indian soldiers in the army, and would be they were decided to reduce the Indian soldiers in their army, and even so they were planned to increase European soldiers in their army. It was also decided that instead of recruiting soldiers from how the Bihar, Central India and South India, more soldiers would be recruited from among the Gurkhas, Sikhs and Pathans. Got it, dear students? So instead of recruiting soldiers from how the Bihar, Central India and South India, so now they were decided to recruit more number of soldiers from among the Gurkhas, Sikhs and Pathans. Is also one of the most important decision, so which was actually taken by the British East India Company, especially the British Parliament. And afterwards, dear students, the another one important decision which was actually taken by the British Parliament, that was the land and property of Muslims was confiscated on a large scale, and they were treated with suspicion and hostility. ಪಾಪ ಅವ್ರಿಗೆ ಹೆಂಗ ಅನಿಸಿರ್ಬೇಕೀಗ. The land and property of Muslims was confiscated on a large scale, and they were treated with suspicion and hostility. The British believed that they were responsible for the rebellion in a big way. British believed like that. The British were believed like that. So the Muslims only major problem, and they were only more responsible for the rebellion in a big way. So that's what they were planned to confiscate the property and land of the Muslim communities, and even they were treated with suspicion and hostility. And even dear students, the British, they were decided to respect the customary religious and social practices of the people in India. This is actually one of the good sign. The British, they were decided to respect the customary religious and social practices of the Indians. Whatever it may be, the customs and the traditions of Indians. So they were decided to respect those customary religious and social practices of Indians. ಸೊ ಭಾರತೀಯರ ಆಚಾರ ವಿಚಾರಗಳಿಗೆ ಗೌರವವನ್ನು ನೀಡತಕ್ಕಂಥ ನಿರ್ಧಾರವನ್ನ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಮಾಡುತ್ತೆ ಮಕ್ಕಳ. Then the another one last important point, that is policies were made to protect landlords and zamindars and give them security of rights over their lands. Understood, dear students? So policies were made to protect landlords and zamindars and also give them security of rights over their lands. So there's a new phase of history began after 1857, dear students. See, because of the 1857 incident, which was actually led by all together, especially the role of the soldiers, peasants, and different people, those who are actively participated in these rebellious activities. So because of their struggle, because of their time, because of their sacrifices, all these changes were brought by the British Parliament in our subcontinent. Then we are able to understand. So how they were made, the different policies and their plan also, dear students. So of course, dear students, so that's what I told that. So this incident, which is actually called by the British historians as a Sipahi mutiny of 1857, and which was actually described by the Indian historians as the first ಫ್ರೀಡಮ್ ಸ್ಟ್ರಗಲ್ ವಾರ್ ಅಗೇನ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್, ಅಥವಾ ಭಾರತದ ಪ್ರಪ್ರಥಮ ಸ್ವಾತಂತ್ರ್ಯ ಸಂಗ್ರಾಮ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಯಾವ ಇತಿಹಾಸಕಾರರು ಇದನ್ನ ಬಣ್ಣಿಸ್ತಾರೋ ಆ ಒಂದು ದಿಕ್ಕಿನಲ್ಲಿ ನೋಡಿದಾಗ ಮಕ್ಕಳ, ಸೊ ಈ ಒಂದು 1857 ಈ ಒಂದು ಹೋರಾಟ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಬಹಳ ಮಹತ್ತರವಾದಂಥದ್ದು. ಯಾಕೆಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ ಇದು ಹಲವಾರು ಬದಲಾವಣೆಗಳನ್ನ ತರಲಿಕ್ಕೆ, ಜಾರಿ ಮಾಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ, ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ನೇರವಾಗಿ ತನ್ನ ಆಡಳಿತವನ್ನು ಹೇರಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಹಾಗೂ ಒಂದಷ್ಟು ಸುಧಾರಣೆಗಳನ್ನು ತರಲಿಕ್ಕೆ ಈ ಒಂದು 857ರ ಹೋರಾಟ ಏನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅದು ಮುನ್ನುಡಿಯನ್ನ ಬರೀತು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರು ಸಹ ತಪ್ಪಾಗ್ಲಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ರಿಯಲಿ ದ ಗ್ರೇಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್. So being Indians, we should feel proud. So there were so many, they were sacrificed. Mangal Pandya ಅಂದಿಡ್ದು ನಾನಾ ಸೈನಿಕರುಗಳ ತನಕ, even the last king of Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah Jafar and his wife Begum Jinnat Mahal, Jhansi Rani Lakshmi Bai, Nana Sahib, Tamta Topi, and there were so many other peoples, Sipais, Nawabs, Rajas, rebels, everybody, they were contributed a lot and then sacrificed their life for the country against British administration. So because of that only, dear students, because of this only, so the British Parliament brought a lot of changes after this incident. 1857 ಈ ಬೆಳವಣಿಗೆಗಳು ಏನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ, ಇದು ಸಣ್ಣ ಪುಟ್ಟದೆಲ್ಲ ಮಕ್ಕಳು. ಅಫ್ಕೋರ್ಸ್ ಬೈ using the extra reinforcement from England also, by using the different policies also, even though the British, they were unable to control, unable to take their hand or recapture once again, they had taken almost 2 years. The rebellions, revolt against in 1857, almost it was came to an end in 1859. That means 2 ವರ್ಷಗಳ ಕಾಲ ನಿರಂತರವಾಗಿ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಈಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಕಂಪನಿ ಅಥವಾ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷರಿಗೆ ಎಷ್ಟು ಒಂದು ಸನ್ನಿವೇಶವನ್ನು ತಂದು ಹೊಡ್ಡಿದ್ರು ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ಭಾರತೀಯರು ಆ ಒಂದು ಕೆಚ್ಚೆದೆಯ ಹೋರಾಟ, ಅಪ್ರತಿಮ ವೀರಾಗ್ರಣಿಗಳು, ಆ ಒಂದು ಬಲಿದಾನ ಏನಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಮಕ್ಕಳ, ಸೊ ಅದು ಭಾರತದ ಇತಿಹಾಸದಲ್ಲಿ ಒಂದು ಹೊಸ ಮುನ್ನುಡಿಯನ್ನ ಬರೀತು. ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಒನ್ ಆಫ್ ದ ಟರ್ನಿಂಗ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್, ರಿಮಾರ್ಕಬಲ್ event which was taken place in 1857 in our Indian history, dear students. ಬಹುಶಃ ಇಲ್ಲ ಅಂದಿದ್ರೆ, ಸೊ ಈಸ್ಟ್ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಕಂಪನಿ ಆಡಳಿತ ಮತ್ತಷ್ಟು ಹಾಗೆ ಮುಂದುವರಿತಾ ಇತ್ತು. ಸೊ ಹಾಗೆ ಇನ್ನೇನೇನು ಆಗ್ತಾ ಇತ್ತು ತಿಳಿಲಿಕ್ಕಿಲ್ಲ. ಸೊ ದೇ ಆರ್ ಆಕ್ಚುಲಿ ಅವೇರ್ ಅಬೌಟ್ ದಿಸ್. ಹಾಗೆ ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾಡಿ, ದ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ ದ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಪೀಪಲ್, ದೇ ಆರ್ ಟೇಕನ್ ಆಲ್ಮೋಸ್ಟ್ 2 years ಟು ಕಂಟ್ರೋಲ್ ದಿಸ್ ಸಿಚುವೇಶನ್ ಅಂತ ಹೇಳಿದ್ರೆ, ವಿಚಾರ ಮಾಡಿ ಮಕ್ಕಳ, ಆ ಹೋರಾಟದ ತೀವ್ರತೆ ಏನಿತ್ತು, ಆ ಹೋರಾಟದ ಕೆಚ್ಚು ಎಷ್ಟಿತ್ತು, ಅವುಗಳನ್ನ ನಾವು ಇಮ್ಯಾಜಿನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿಕ್ಕೂ ಸಹ ಸಾಧ್ಯ ಇಲ್ಲ ಮಕ್ಕಳು. ಸೊ afterwards what happened, we all knows that. Just I would like to, because this is what a very important thing, so I would like to repeat once again the changes which were actually brought after this 1857. Understood? So they were actually introduced some of the new important changes in Indian administration. First of all, dear students, what happened? No, the British Parliament passed a new act in 1858 and transferred the complete powers of the East India Company to the directly to the British Crown in order to ensure a more responsible management of Indian affairs. And also, dear students, we all know that a member of the British cabinet, so he was appointed Secretary of State for India. Secretary of State for India anteli appointment ಮಾಡ್ತಾರೆ, and made responsible for all matters related to the governance of India. He only the responsible one for all matters about the governance of India. And also he was given a council to advise him. ಅವನಿಗೊಂದು ಕೌನ್ಸಿಲ್ ಅನ್ನು ಸಹ ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ, ಅಡ್ವೈಸಿಂಗ್ ಕಮಿಟಿ ಸಹ ಒಂದು ಕೊಡ್ತಾರೆ ಆತನಿಗೆ ಆಡಳಿತದಲ್ಲಿ ಸಲಹೆಗಳನ್ನು ನೀಡಲಿಕ್ಕೆ. ದಟ್ ಇಸ್ ಕಾಲ್ಡ್ ದ ಇಂಡಿಯಾ ಕೌನ್ಸಿಲ್. The council, it is called India Council. And also we knows that the Governor General of India was given the title of Viceroy. Instead of calling Governor General, the title was given like so Viceroy. That is a personal representative of the crown. Viceroy, he was a personal representative of the crown. Though these measures, the British government accepted a direct responsibility for ruling India. So ಭಾರತದ ಆಡಳಿತವನ್ನು ನಿರ್ವಹಣೆ ಮಾಡತಕ್ಕಂಥ ನೇರವಾದಂತಹ ಜವಾಬ್ದಾರಿಯನ್ನ ಬ್ರಿಟಿಷ್ ಪಾರ್ಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ತಾನು ತಗೊಳ್ಳುತ್ತೆ. Then afterwards, what happened? We all of you knows that all ruling chiefs of the country were assured that their territory would never be annexed in the future days, and they were allowed to pass on their kingdoms on their heirs, including adopted sons also. However, they were made to acknowledge the British Queen as their sovereign paramount. Thus, the Indian rulers were to hold their kingdoms as subordinates of the British Parliament or British Crown. And also, dear student, it was decided that the proportion of Indian soldiers in the army would be reduced, the number of the number of European soldiers would be increased. So it was also decided that instead of recruiting soldiers from how the Bihar, Central India and South India, so they would be recruited from among the Gurkhas, Sikhs and Pathans instead of the soldiers from how the Bihar, Central and South India. And also, dear students, the land and the property of Muslims was confiscated on a large scale, and they were treated with suspicion and hostility because the British people they believed that the Muslims community only responsible for the rebellion in a big way. So that's what their land and their property completely confiscated, and even they were treated with suspicion and hostility. The British they were decided to respect the customary religious and social practices of the people in India. And even the policies were made to protect landlords and jamindars and given them security of rights over their land. So that's what a new phase of history began after 1857. So, I hope, dear students, you are able to understand this lesson. If you are not getting anything, so please call me. So, there is the case study that is about Kurda uprising. That is a case study that you can read through the textbook. If you are not understanding anything, so please let me know by calling. Please try to clear your doubt. And the next class, I am going to start a new lesson. Thank you. Have a nice day.